Hey, welcome to another video. Today's question is, does an ex-drinker want to drink alcohol? Life is not perfect for anyone. Stop the flow, do the work you need to do, move on. But, do you ever really move on from the alcohol, is alcohol not just a part of your life, a part of the program that's just running through your life? You started out, you got dependent on it, maybe you got hooked on it, and that's it. It's just buried beneath the surface, waiting to come out again. I think it's a common thing with a lot of clients that I deal with, especially within the first 3 or 4 months. They see somebody who's drinking, or they'll be at a party and they'll see somebody who's drinking at a party and they'll think, I could do with letting my hair down right now, right? I've had a bad day, I've had a whatever, this or that or the other, or it's been a tough week, or it's been a tough year, or it's just been something. And am I wrong in thinking that this is all just toxic for my life? Am I wrong? Am I out of the addiction now? Maybe just the one won't hurt. Or they'll see an advert for wine and they'll say, they'll look at what they're saying in the advert, the setting, the smiling faces, the appearance of fun, right? And that brings on an edge of doubt. They're really very good at what they do, big alcohol, and the marketing companies that they employ. They've got lots and lots of money to put into this. Lots of money to put into their efforts at convincing people, convincing you to be a drinker and convincing you to stay a drinker. A lot of money, right? So, sometimes these clients, these people who've been unplugged from the habit for 3 or 4 months, right, they wake up in the morning and they have questions. They go through the day and they have questions. Am I really better off without any drink at all? Without even a single glass of wine, maybe on a special occasion? Now, the thing about this is none of this happens very often, right? It does happen. It does happen occasionally for these people. It happened for me in this journey, and not just in the first few months. It happens after years of doing this, right? So am I wrong? Are these people wrong? Are we all wrong in what we're talking about here? Like I said, this is a problem with most people. And it's a problem, I think, mostly in those first 2 or 3 months of the process. That's when the thoughts start creeping in. That's when you feel good about yourself. You're in that moment when you know that you've conquered whatever pain it is that started you out on the journey. I've been doing this for a long time now, and I've seen some shit, right? And sometimes even I've thought those things, right? Can you believe that? Even after a decade of freedom, knowing what I know about alcohol, all the shit that I know, and you still have that thought popping into your head every so often. The difference now is that I understand, right? I understand what's happening. I know the answer. I know what the real problem is, so to speak. I'm not having a craving or a wish or a doubt, but I'm susceptible to the same bullshit that everyone else is susceptible to. No matter how far in this journey you go, no matter what you believe in this life, there's always going to be a time when a thought pops into your head, even for a split second. And that's generally what thoughts are. You get a thought and it'll occur for a split second, and it depends what you take notice of. So even in that split second, it might be an introduction of a little bit of doubt. I think the more of a thinker you are, the more you think into things, the more doubts that you have about things. The more you think into life in general. When you're a kid and you're heading out from your parents' house, you know everything, and that's the time when you should just stop thinking, because if you know everything, what's the point in knowing anything more? But as we all find out when we leave home and we start experiencing life, and the more you experience life, the more you understand about life, the more you understand how much you don't understand. If you never think, where are your doubts coming from? You're never going to have any doubts if you don't think about things. That's what the comfort zone is. That's what people hiding in the shells do. And I think that's another form of just escaping from life. We all have to think, and sometimes if you don't think about things, you're forced into thinking about things because of the consequences of what you're doing to yourself, right? So if I'm having a hard time in life, which is not too often, right? I don't often have a hard time, but let's just say I'm feeling sorry for myself. I get pissed off with things like taxes and government and interference from government, interference from busybodies, banks, right? Any of these people in life, wankers, I would feel about them in some form or another at some stages in my life. These are people who make their money from the sweat of others but don't create anything. That's what I get pissed off with most. There's times when I just want to opt out of this bullshit. And it's times like this when I get angry, when I'm frustrated. Maybe I'm frustrated with some petty bureaucrat, and everyone's got to make a living, right? I'm not isolating anyone out for this, right? It's not the people, it's the institutions. But it's times like this when I've been born and grown up as a goat herder, maybe a few hundred years ago, living my life out in the mountains, me with my goats and my goat dogs, whiling away the days and not a worry in the world. But, that's momentary. Look where I am, what I'm doing, regardless of the doubts. I wouldn't be doing any of this if I hadn't come to my senses, if I hadn't stopped the flow of this poison, if I hadn't done what I needed to do, right? The work that allowed me to do this, the work that allowed me to move on, allowed me to come to a place like this, right? I'm living my ideal life for the most part, right? I don't have the goats, but I never really wanted the goats anyway, when these things, there's certain things in life where the romanticization of it is doesn't match up to the reality of things, right? So I never wanted the goats. I wanted the mountains, I wanted the tranquility, the fresh air, the peace and quiet, and the dogs, right? I can't forget the dogs. Murphy and Bowsy, man's best friend. And when it comes to the doubts, if I have everything that I want, where are these thoughts coming from? Let me put it this way. If I sit and I think about it, and I've been doing this for over a decade now, what remains the same is always the evidence, the facts, the truth about something. That alcohol in large amounts is not good for the human body or human life, right? It's not good for anybody. And the argument is, what is a large amount? And there's plenty of evidence now that says that even small amounts of alcohol are not good for your brain, right? When I'm looking at my dogs, for instance, would I give alcohol to them, to Bowsy and Murphy? Not in a million fucking years would I give alcohol to my dogs. Why? Because I know it's going to poison them, right? We try and give them the best food, the best treatment, everything, right? And it's the same reason I wouldn't feed alcohol to a baby. My sister's just had a new baby. Would I give alcohol to that and put some alcohol into the bottle? I know they've done it in the past, or to a child. We rationalize out these things in our adult minds by saying, well, children are growing up and they don't have the capacity for alcohol, right? They don't have the liver for it. They don't have the brain for it. Well, neither do we. We're kidding ourselves. A serotic liver doesn't happen overnight, right? And the thing about a serotic liver is it's not an anomaly. It's what happens given enough booze and given enough time. A serotic liver will always happen. And just because your liver might not be serotic, mine isn't, it's just slightly serotic, slight scarring on it. It doesn't mean to say that it's not damaged and beyond repair for those parts. So, and when you look at this, your liver doesn't get damaged in isolation either, Where the alcohol flows, the damage goes. That's something just to keep in your mind. Where the alcohol flows, the damage goes. So the evidence that alcohol is disastrous for the human body, the evidence that alcohol is disastrous for human life, well, that's just a fact. It's just a fact. It's indisputable. So once I see that, once I understand that, once I see the evidence as indisputable, there's no going back. You know, there's no going back to not knowing that. And yet those thoughts persist. Those thoughts will pop up when I'm having a bad day or a bad moment. You know, like not once in a blue moon now, you know. It's like if I said once a year, that'd probably be about right? And yet those thoughts still pop up. But the evidence is still there, right? So let's take it from someone who's in those first 2 or 3 months, or 4 months, or whatever it is after they've stopped the flow, right? When they've had a good day, they don't think about drinking, right? When they've had a bad day, and alcohol thoughts pop up in their brain. When they have a good day, they don't think about it. When they have a bad day, they think about it. So what is changing? The evidence? No, you. You're psychologically going up and down, you know? The evidence stays the same. The evidence doesn't move. You know, it's you and your moods and your psychology that is moving. So sometimes you have to ignore the psychology, ignore what your mood is telling you, and stick to the evidence. You know what the evidence is. Look at your life. Look at what's happened since you stopped drinking alcohol. Look at why you're watching this video, right? I always say to people at the beginning, that pain that is driving you towards stopping drinking alcohol, that's going to stop. That's going to go once you stop drinking, right? And then you're going to have to find more motivations to carry on. But the motivation should be in life, in what we're doing, in the fact that, look at how much my life has improved. You see people with the dry January thing. They go, and at the end of it, they go, oh, I can't believe how well I'm sleeping. I'm eating well. I'm feeling great, you know. Can't wait to go out at the weekend and have my pint because this month is over, you know. So look at all the changes that have happened. I remember saying when I got to my first year, since I unplugged from the habit, right? I said, I've done more. Have a look at that first year video. Go back and look at it. I said, I've done more in the last year without this poison in my life than I did in the last 10 years when I was plugged into this habit. I didn't say plugged into this habit, but drinking, you know what I mean? So if I had to boil it down to one piece of evidence for me, unquestionable evidence, it would be that before and after, right? Where I was a drinker and how my life was unfolding when I was deeply plugged into that habit. All the shit that was happening in my life, all the damage that I caused to myself, all the pain that I was at that moment. You know, looking at my son walking along that beach with his head down in the sand looking for this iPod, you know. And I knew that I'd brought him in that moment to that stage where he was hungover and he was in the middle of this drug thing, you know. And it doesn't matter, you know, like where he was in it. It was, I brought him there. I was partially responsible for that. And then I compare that to where I am now a decade later and how much my life has unfolded since I've become unplugged from that habit. So go back to the first question, do I ever want to drink? You know, you could make the argument that those thoughts are a want, that they're an indication of an inner desire on my behalf. You know, you could make that argument, right? I'm not saying that you couldn't, but that's what life is all about. It's all about choices and trade-offs. It's about thinking things through and predicting certain outcomes. If I make this choice, this is going to be the outcome. And the more of that outcome that follows that choice, the easier it is to predict what the outcome is going to be, right? The more you know yourself, the less self-delusion can play a part in your decision. Not really, not when you look at the evidence. That's what I'm saying to you. You know, you can delude yourself as much as you want and you can hide behind things as much as you want, but the evidence is there, plain as day. All you have to do is open up your mind to it. So I'll leave it there for today. This is another ranty video, but it's a lovely day out here, so I hope you got something out of it. If what you heard today resonates with you and you're eager to transform your life, leave that old crappy life, the crappy habit behind. I'm not saying anything about your life. I'm saying that there's a habit that can lead you into a a lot of damage and a lot of bad consequences. We've got the beginner's guide to getting and staying sober, right? Should be called the beginner's guide to unplugging from alcohol, right? I think it's an ideal first step, right? Its aim is to get you on that road, to make it easier for you to make that decision. You know, we've included some what I consider to be really expert advice from my perspective, right? From what I've learned over my 10 years alcohol-free and teaching other people. We've taken a lot of stuff from our main program, and there's some really helpful tools that will make it a little bit easier for you. Now, stopping the flow is just the beginning. If you want to really thrive, if you want to break this habit, and you've got to not only break the habit, but you've got to build new habits that are going to help you to get where you want to go, right? Build habits that are going to push you in the direction that you want to go. And if that's something that interests you, then that's where Habits V2 comes in. You can see the links in the description. It's a really comprehensive program that will take you all the way to that first year unplugged from this habit. And I tell you what a milestone that is, you know. It's all about the mindsets. Remember, every journey starts with a single step. It's never too late to start choosing a better future for yourself. Onwards and upwards, take care.